Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. Are you deaf? Or just stupid? The shout cracked across the ballroom so hard the laughter died instantly, like someone had slammed a door in a cathedral. Under crystal chandeliers, everything glittered: diamonds, cufflinks, satin gowns, polished smiles. People stood in tight circles, sipping champagne and pretending the night was about charity instead of status. For one suspended second, no one moved. Then heads turned together, hungry for a spectacle that wasn't theirs. Layla Grant was mid-step when the sound hit her. She wore the black and white uniform of the catering staff, pressed sleeves, simple vest, hair neatly secured. A tray rested steady in her hands. She looked like someone trained to be invisible in expensive rooms. But she didn't flinch. Ethan Whitmore, CEO posture, CEO entitlement, jerked back as if her presence itself had offended him. A faint red stain touched the edge of his cuff. It was barely anything. A drop. A smudge. To Ethan, it was a violation. He leaned close, lowering his voice as if secrecy made cruelty elegant, and then switched languages as casually as switching shoes. Arabic. Fast. Cutting. Practiced, delivered with the smug confidence of a man who believed his target couldn't possibly understand. Some guests didn't know the words, but they knew the intent. Others laughed anyway, because laughter was a shield in rooms like this. And a few didn't laugh at all, because they did understand. Charlotte Kingsley, draped in a bright red gown that screamed money and boredom, grinned like she'd been handed entertainment. She raised her phone and started recording. The lens locked onto Layla the way people lock onto prey, close, eager, certain she'd get a reaction worth posting. Layla set the tray down carefully, so carefully it felt deliberate, almost ceremonial. Then she lifted her eyes. And she replied in Arabic. Not broken. Not hesitant. Fluent, precise, native in rhythm, the kind of Arabic that didn't come from apps or party tricks. The words landed soft, controlled, and sharp enough to draw blood without raising her volume. At the Champagne Tower, Omar Al-Fad, silver at the temples, posture like diplomacy, turned his head sharply. His expression shifted from polite distance to sudden attention. Ethan blinked. For half a heartbeat, his confidence slipped into something else. Confusion. Then a flicker of fear, quickly disguised as anger. What? He started, then swallowed it, as if the room had suddenly grown teeth. Nearby, Damian Cole stood apart from the crowd, half in shadow. Black, tall, and dressed in a dark suit that looked expensive even under stress. A small cut near his hairline had dried into a thin line, the kind you get when someone bumps you hard at a crowded entrance and a glass edge catches skin. Not dramatic. Just proof the night wasn't as smooth as the invitations promised. Damian held a phone to his ear. He wasn't watching Ethan. He was watching Layla. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to Layla. Ethan snapped his fingers at the nearest security guard, loud enough for the people filming to catch every syllable. Get her out. Now. The guard stepped forward on instinct, then hesitated. Not because conscience suddenly grew, but because Layla's stillness didn't match her uniform. She stood like someone who belonged, like someone choosing restraint. Charlotte's phone tilted higher, capturing Layla's face, waiting for panic. Omar's eyes narrowed. His mouth tightened, as if he just heard something that couldn't be undone. Ethan leaned in again, muttering one more line in Arabic, meaner, more desperate, trying to reclaim what he felt slipping away. Danian finally spoke into the phone, voice low and final. "Cancel the $500 million deal," he said. "Now." And just like that, the chandeliers didn't look as bright anymore. The guard's hand reached for Layla's elbow, firm, practiced, the way men touch people they've already decided don't get to argue. Layla didn't jerk away. She didn't stumble. She simply turned her wrist slightly so his fingers met fabric, not skin, and looked at him with the calm of someone taking attendance. "I'm walking," she said, in plain English. Ethan took a step behind the guard like a general hiding behind a shield. "Not walking," Ethan snapped. "Removed." Charlotte's phone tracked every inch of it, hungry for a meltdown. She laughed under her breath, light and cruel, like a fork tapping crystal. "Look at her," Charlotte murmured. "She thinks she's, what? Important?" The guard tightened his grip. Layla glanced at his hand, then up again, unbothered. "You don't want to do this," she said quietly. The guard hesitated, not because of the words, but because of the tone. People who beg sound one way. People who warn sound another. Ethan heard the hesitation and pounced on it. "What are you waiting for?" he barked. "Do your job." He turned to the crowd like a performer who needed witnesses to stay powerful. "Some people don't know their place," he announced. "They walk into spaces like this and forget their staff." A few men laughed too quickly. A few women smiled too tightly. A few faces stayed neutral because neutrality was currency. Omar moved before anyone else did. He crossed the floor with measured steps, the kind that made people part without realizing they were moving. He stopped within earshot, eyes locked on Ethan. "Enough," Omar said. Not shouted. Not dramatic. Worse than shouting, because it sounded like the final word of a conversation. Ethan stiffened. He forced a smile CEOs saved for cameras in boardrooms. "Mr. Alfad," Ethan began, smooth as oil. "I didn't realize you were." "I was listening," Omar cut in. "In my language." The room tilted. Phones lowered an inch. Then another. People understood this was no longer a private humiliation. Ethan laughed, too loud, trying to drag it back into his control. "Oh, come on. It's nothing. She made a mess and got." Layla spoke again, in Arabic. One sentence, polite, formal, controlled, like a letter read aloud. Omar's jaw tightened. His eyes flashed, not at Layla, but at Ethan. Ethan didn't understand the words, but he understood the change. He felt it like a temperature drop. "What did she say?" Ethan demanded. "What did she say?" Omar didn't answer him. He looked at the guard instead. "Release her." The guard's fingers loosened instinctively, as if his body had decided who outranked whom. Ethan lunged forward, offended by the loss of dominance. "Excuse me," he snapped. "This is my event." Omar's gaze stayed steady. "This is a room. You are a guest in it." Silence. Then Ethan did what insecure men do when the floor starts moving beneath them. He stomped harder. He leaned toward Layla, voice dropping into Arabic again, sharper than before, meant to cut while the room only heard tone. Layla didn't blink. She replied immediately. Arabic flowed like she'd been waiting for him to show his hand. Ethan's eyes widened. He took a half step back before he could stop himself. Charlotte's smile faltered. Her phone stayed up, but her eyes flicked, calculating now, not entertained. Damien moved at last. He didn't rush. He didn't shove. He simply walked toward the center with the calm pace of someone who owned time. The crowd noticed him the way people notice a storm, too late, but all at once. He stopped beside Layla, not in front of her. Beside her. A quiet alignment. Ethan saw Damien and scoffed, reaching for swagger like a drowning man reaches for air. "And who are you supposed to be?" Ethan sneered. "Another staff member with an attitude?" Damien's expression didn't change. He glanced at the guard. "Sir, step back." The guard obeyed without thinking. Ethan's voice sharpened. "Don't tell my security." Omar lifted a hand, and the room listened. "General Manager," Omar called out, scanning the perimeter. "I want the person in charge of this venue. Now." Sophia appeared from the edge of the crowd in a tailored black suit, face composed, eyes fast. "Yes, Mr. Alfad?" Omar pointed toward Layla. "I want her treated with respect," he said. "And I want to know why a guest believes he can put hands on staff in your ballroom." Ethan spluttered. "Hands? I barely." Sophia's eyes went to the guard's grip, the phone's recording, the tightening circle of attention. She understood the threat instantly, not just to the hotel, but to every name in the room. Layla turned to Sophia. "Please bring the private signing suite online," Layla said calmly. "And tell counsel we'll be proceeding without veil tech." The name hit the air like a dropped glass. Ethan froze. "Without what?" he whispered. Damien met Ethan's eyes for the first time. His voice landed like a stamp on paper. "You heard her," Damien said. "You're done here." The ballroom didn't erupt. It recalibrated. Phones that had been held high a minute ago lowered as people realized they weren't watching a waitress get put in her place. They were watching a man misjudge a room and the cost of that mistake. Ethan stood rigid, jaw clenched so hard the muscle jumped. His eyes darted from Sophia to Omar to Damien like a man searching for someone he could still intimidate. He found none. "This is insane," Ethan said, forcing out a laugh that didn't land. "Sophia, clear this up. I'm a guest of honor." Sophia didn't defend him. She simply held her posture like a locked door. "Mr. Whitmore," she said evenly, "please step away from the staff." Ethan flinched at the word, not because it protected Layla, but because it denied him the narrative. Layla didn't move. Her hands rested at her sides, relaxed, as if she had all night to stand there. Damien's voice stayed low. "You don't get to touch her. Not here." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Who are you?" Damien didn't offer a name. He offered certainty. "Someone who doesn't make threats," he said. "I make decisions." Omar looked at Layla, and when he spoke, it was to her, respectful now. In Arabic, Omar said, "Tell me who you are." Layla replied in Arabic with the cadence of boardrooms and embassies, not back hallways. Omar listened, then slowly exhaled as if suspicion had turned into fact. He turned to Ethan. "You came here seeking capital," Omar said. "And you used my language like a weapon." Ethan's mouth opened, then shut. "This is a misunderstanding," he said quickly. "I'm under pressure. Everyone's watching. Let's not make it bigger than it is." But it was already bigger. Because money wasn't the biggest thing in the room anymore. Reputation was. Sophia touched her earpiece, murmuring. Activate the signing suite. Notify counsel. And flag Mr. Whitmore's event credential. Ethan heard enough to feel the humiliation stack. He stepped toward Layla, dropping his voice like proximity could restore dominance. Listen, he hissed, if this is about money, I can. You already showed me what you're willing to pay with, Layla said. And it isn't money. She turned and walked, not rushed, not dragged, toward the side corridor where the private suites were located. Damien fell into step beside her. Not a bodyguard stance. A partner's. Ethan followed, unable to stop himself. Not touching. Not shouting. Just trailing with the panic of a man watching a lifeline slip through his fingers. He knew the number. Everyone at Vailtech knew the number. $500 million. Not growth. Survival. A bridge facility to make payroll, satisfy covenants, keep lenders from calling the stack. 48 hours to close, or the board would have to admit what Ethan had been hiding behind glossy earnings calls. Vailtech was choking. At the suite entrance, Sophia arrived with 2 attorneys and a tablet. A discreet sign read, Executive Annex. Sophia opened the door. Inside, quiet, bright, set up like a negotiation battlefield, leather chairs, bottled water aligned like soldiers, documents arranged with surgical neatness. Ethan stopped at the threshold. Layla turned to him. For the first time, her calm felt less like composure and more like procedure. Mr. Whitmore, she said, and the title sounded like paperwork, Meridian Capital will not proceed with Vailtech. Ethan's face drained. He choked. You're Meridian? Damien pulled a slim folder from his inner jacket and set it on the table with a soft, final tap. A term sheet. And on the signature line already authorized was the name Ethan had tried to erase in public. Layla Grant. Ethan stared at the signature like it had been carved into stone. Layla didn't sit. She stood at the head of the table, hands relaxed, expression composed, like someone who had already survived the emotional part and entered the administrative one. You're Meridian, Ethan said again, as if repeating it could make it less true. Meridian doesn't send. Testers? Damien finished, flat. Sophia closed the door with a soft click. The sound sealed the moment. We don't send people, Layla said. We observe systems. Ethan stepped inside, then stopped, unsure if he was allowed to exist in the room. Okay, he rushed. Layla, I didn't know. If I'd known, I would've. You would've behaved, Layla said calmly. That's the point. Ethan's eyes flicked to Omar. Omar, you understand pressure. It got misread in a crowded room. I understood perfectly, Omar cut in. In my language. Ethan tried a different angle, bargaining dressed as charm. Fine. Name your terms. I'll apologize. I'll donate. I'll do whatever statement you want. Just don't pull the plug. Damien slid the folder closer with 2 fingers. It's already pulled, Damien said. Page 9. Ethan flipped through too fast, scanning for loopholes instead of truth. Layla didn't let him pretend ignorance. Conduct and reputational risk clause, she said. Abuse, discrimination, harassment, anything creating measurable brand risk or legal exposure. Triggered tonight. No cure period. Sophia placed her tablet on the table and swiped. A paused video filled the screen, Ethan's face twisted, his finger pointed, his mouth wide in that first shout. Ethan's throat tightened. She posted it, he whispered, realizing. Sophia's tone stayed neutral. It's spreading. Damien checked a message. 3 outlets requested comment. Vailteca's PR is calling your board members individually. Ethan's panic sharpened into accusation. This is extortion, he spat at Layla. You baited me. You came dressed like staff. You wanted a reaction. So I could protect money from a man who thinks dignity is optional? Layla asked, still calm. Omar leaned forward, palms on the table. In my culture, Omar said, a man's tongue reveals his soul. You showed yours. Ethan stared at the tablet, then at Layla, then at Damien as if searching for a door he could still slam. You can't do this fast, he said, voice cracking. Deals don't die in minutes. Layla finally sat down, slowly, deliberately, taking her rightful seat as if the room had always been waiting for her. Deals die the moment trust dies, she said. The paperwork just catches up. She nodded at Sophia. Sophia tapped her screen again. A line item appeared, event contract, principal sponsor / contract holder, Meridian Capital, authorized signatory, Layla Grant. Ethan went pale. You control access, he whispered. Tonight, Meridian is the principal sponsor and contract holder, Layla said. We control who stays in this building under this event's terms. Damien's phone buzzed. He answered, listened for 2 seconds, then looked at Ethan. Your board chair is on the line, Damien said. Asking why the $500 million facility is gone. Layla's eyes moved to the speaker device, calm as a surgeon. Put it on speaker, she said. Sophia tapped the tablet twice. The speaker lit. A man's voice filled the room, clipped, strained. Ethan. Why am I being told Meridian has withdrawn the bridge facility? Ethan straightened, hands hovering over the folder like he could physically hold money in place. Mr. Hargrove, listen, there's been a misunderstanding, Ethan rushed. We're with Meridian right now. We can fix. Damien pressed a button. Good evening, he said. Damien Cole, Meridian Capital. I'm recording this call for compliance. Silence. Then the board chair again, tighter. Why was the facility terminated? Layla spoke, and authority settled over the room like a weight. Layla Grant. Managing partner, she said. The facility is being withdrawn under the Conduct and Reputational Risk Clause. Ethan's eyes widened at the title. You can't just, he started. Layla lifted one finger. Ethan stopped mid-syllable, like his body had learned what his ego hadn't. We have contemporaneous video evidence of abusive and discriminatory conduct at a Meridian-attended event, Layla continued. Counsel advised immediate withdrawal to limit exposure. There is no cure period. The board chair exhaled sharply. Ethan, he snapped, what did you do? Ethan tried to sound indignant. She came in disguised as staff, he protested. This was manipulative. She baited me. This is coercion. Damien didn't look at him. He slid a second document forward. Our counsel is delivering formal notice now, Damien said into the speaker. And counsel has instructed the escrow agent to stand down pending that notice. Credit committee minutes reflect the trigger event. Ethan stared at the paper like it was a death certificate. Sophia added, efficient and cold. Mr. Whitmore, she said, your event credential has been flagged. Security will deny you re-entry to the ballroom. Ethan flinched. This is my. Your presence is now a liability, Sophia replied. On speaker, the board chair's panic sharpened. We close in 48 hours, he said. If this facility is gone, our covenants. Layla's tone didn't soften. Then you should not have entrusted survival to someone who confuses dignity with hierarchy, she said. A heavy pause. Then the board chair spoke slower. Ms. Grant, is there any path forward? Damien answered. Not with Ethan Whitmore as CEO, he said. At minimum, his signing authority would have to be suspended and governance controls installed. Even then, Meridian would reevaluate. Ethan's voice turned raw. You're trying to take my company. Layla looked at him, not angry, almost disappointed. No, she said quietly. You're handing it away. On speaker, the board chair's tone hardened. Ethan, effective immediately, your signing authority is suspended pending an emergency board vote. Step away from the transaction. Ethan blinked, stunned. You can't, he whispered. I can, the chair said. After tonight, I have to. Sophia opened the suite door, procedural, not dramatic. Mr. Whitmore, she said, polite as a blade, this way. Ethan stumbled toward the exit, glancing back at Layla with a cracked voice. Why are you doing this? Layla's answer was soft and final. Because you thought my humanity depended on my uniform, she said. And now your future depends on my decision. Ethan didn't make it 10 steps into the corridor before the night began to swallow him. 2 security officers guided him toward a service elevator, polite in tone, immovable in posture. Ethan kept trying to slow them down, as if delaying the exit might delay the consequences. This is a mistake, he muttered. Do you know who I am? One guard didn't even look at him. Yes, the guard replied. That's why we're moving quickly. Back in the ballroom, Charlotte still had her phone up. Her caption had been smug, something about staff needing training. For 12 minutes, it did numbers. Then the comments arrived like a storm. Why is he screaming at her? Did he switch to Arabic to insult her? She answered him fluently. This isn't a moment. This is who he is. Someone clipped the exact second Layla replied. Clean audio. Tight crop. Ethan's confidence collapsing in real time. The clip spread faster than Charlotte could refresh her feed. Delete didn't work. It never worked. Copies lived everywhere, reposted, stitched, subtitled in 3 languages, slowed down to showcase the precise moment his power cracked. Wealth didn't gasp like ordinary crowds. It repositioned. Guests started leaving in quiet clusters, faces carefully blank, phones pressed to ears, trying to get ahead of their own association. A donor whispered, "We should go." His partner nodded too fast. Now. Before our names end up in a screenshot. Omar spoke quietly to Sophia. Sophia's staff moved like they'd rehearsed for disasters. Certain doors became temporarily unavailable. Staff members were directed away from cameras. The hotel's legal counsel arrived with eyes already tired. Damien stood near the executive annex entrance, checking his phone as if reading weather reports. But these weren't forecasts. They were confirmations. Counsel, notice delivered. Instruction to escrow agent sent. Document trail clean. PR, media requests surging. We can shape the narrative if we move first. Board chatter, emergency vote in progress. Inside the suite, Layla watched the chaos through a glass panel like the calm eye in the center of a storm. She didn't look satisfied. She looked focused, like the point was never to win a moment but to correct a system. Sophia entered, voice low. "Ms. Grant, press is gathering downstairs," she said. "And Mr. Whitmore is calling anyone who will answer." Layla's gaze didn't change. "Let him," she said. "He spent his whole life believing volume is leverage." Omar stepped closer, voice weighted with tradition. "In my world," he said, "when a man shames someone publicly, the response must also be public. Otherwise the lesson stays private." Layla's eyes moved toward the stage, the microphones, the chandeliers still shining over faces that suddenly didn't feel safe in their own superiority. She inhaled once. "Then we do it properly," she said. Damien opened the door for her. And as Layla walked back toward the light, the room began to understand something terrifying. This wouldn't end in a hallway. The ballroom didn't notice Layla at first. They noticed the shift. Conversations thinned. Smiles stiffened. People who lived on being unbothered suddenly looked bothered by their own reflection in other people's eyes. Sophia moved ahead, whispering to staff, clearing a path without making it look like a path. Damien followed a step behind Layla, not protective, present, like a witness who made lies harder to tell. Charlotte saw her first. Her phone was still up, but her grin was gone. Panic tried to wear confidence like a borrowed coat. Layla walked straight toward the stage. Ethan was gone. But his echo still hung in the air. The microphone waited at the podium, silver, neutral, innocent. Layla rested her fingers on it lightly. A murmur rolled through the crowd. "Who is she?" "That's the waitress." "No," someone said, "that's Meridian." "Meridian? Are you serious?" Omar stood to the side of the stage, visible enough to signal authority. This wasn't theater. This was consequence. Sophia leaned in. "We can keep it private," she offered an exit route. Layla didn't take it. "No," she said softly. "Private is how it survives." She lifted the microphone. "My name is Layla Grant," she said, steady and clear. "And tonight, I was treated like I didn't belong in this room." The sentence landed like a dropped glass. "I'm not saying that to shame anyone," Layla continued. "I'm saying it because it happened in front of you. And because many of you have watched it happen to others and called it normal." She let a beat pass long enough for silence to become theirs, not hers. "Some of you heard the language she used," she said, eyes flicking toward Omar for a fraction of a second. "Some of you didn't. But you all understood the intent." Layla's voice stayed calm. "He believed he could hide disrespect inside a language he assumed I wouldn't understand. He believed my uniform meant my dignity was negotiable." She paused. "It isn't." A shock moved through the room, not loud, but undeniable. "For the record," she said, "I'm the managing partner at Meridian Capital." Faces recalculated. Quickly. Brutally. Layla gestured toward Damien. "This is Damien Cole," she said. "Head of Risk and Compliance at Meridian." Damien gave a single nod. "Tonight, Meridian was here evaluating more than numbers," Layla continued. "We were evaluating governance. Character. The way power behaves when it thinks no one important is watching." Her eyes shifted toward the phones. "And to anyone recording," she added, "you're not my enemy. You're the receipt." Charlotte flinched. Layla leaned closer to the microphone. I'm going to say one thing clearly, she said. You knew I was a human being. That should have been enough. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was moral. As of this moment, Layla said, procedural now, Meridian Capital is withdrawing from any transaction involving Vailtech under its current leadership. The crowd didn't gasp. It computed. Layla's tone softened again, purposeful, not merciful. This isn't revenge, she said. It's a boundary. Then she lowered the microphone slightly, eyes steady. And if you're wondering what happens when you cross it, she said, you're about to find out. The room didn't clap. It didn't boo. It went quiet and started making calls. A man slipped out, phone at his ear. A woman in pearls typed with both thumbs. Someone whispered, we need to distance ourselves, as if distance could scrub video. Layla watched it without flinching. People rarely chose dignity until it became expensive not to. Sophia stepped beside her. Press is downstairs, she murmured. They want a statement. They'll get one, Layla said. Damien spoke into his phone near the stage edge, calm as a checklist. Finalize the withdrawal notice, he said. Time-stamp it. Deliver through counsel. Issue a holding statement. And confirm the escrow agent received stand-down instruction. Omar remained still, his presence like a seal on wax. Layla lifted the microphone again. Tonight isn't only about one man, she said. It's about a pattern that survives because it's convenient. The kind that hides inside, that's just how things are. She paused. And I'm not interested in a performance apology, Layla continued. Not a donation made to purchase forgiveness. A few people shifted, backup plans collapsing. I'm interested in structural change, she said. With receipts. Damien placed a single page on the podium. Clean headings. Real numbers. Sophia angled her tablet toward Layla, showing implementation steps already drafted. Here's what Meridian is doing with the capital that will not be going to Vailtech, Layla said. Heads lifted. Even the people pretending not to care leaned in. Money always did that. We're funding a worker dignity program, Layla said, starting in this city and expanding nationally, training, legal support, and a hotline for service staff facing harassment and discrimination, especially those most routinely treated as disposable. Near the doors, a few servers stood straighter without meaning to. We're launching scholarships for hospitality workers, Layla continued, including language training, because language should never be used as a weapon. And we're partnering with venues that agree to enforce a zero-tolerance policy that applies to everyone, donors, executives, celebrities, everyone. Sophia's eyes tightened, not with fear, but with the sober recognition of what it meant to enforce rules that could cost money. Layla didn't look away from the crowd. And for anyone here who laughed, she said, not angry, just clear, you have a chance to be better than the moment you enjoyed. The sentence held up a mirror. Some looked down. Some looked away. A few looked ashamed. At the edge of the crowd, Charlotte's phone was still recording, but her hand had gone stiff. Her red dress suddenly looked less like glamour and more like a warning flare. A journalist recognized her and whispered her name. Another guest turned. Then another. The web of accountability tightened. On Sophia's tablet, notifications stacked, sponsors re-evaluating, board meeting headlines, media requests, reputational risk calculations happening in real time. Damien leaned toward Layla. It's moving, he murmured. Layla nodded, then spoke into the microphone with quiet force. Justice doesn't have to scream, she said. It just has to be enforced. A hush fell so complete you could hear the hum of the sound system. Omar stepped closer, voice carrying without theatrics. In my world, he said, a man's honor is tested by how he treats those who cannot harm him. His gaze swept the room like blessing and warning at once. Layla lifted her chin. So tonight, she said, consider this test administered. She handed the microphone back to Sophia and stepped away, not triumphant. Resolved. Guests parted instinctively. No one touched her. No one dared. And somewhere far from the chandeliers, Ethan's phone kept ringing board members, counsel, reporters, while the internet replayed the moment his power cracked. Not because Layla shouted. Because she didn't. By the time Layla reached the corridor again, the ballroom behind her no longer felt like a party. It felt like a record sealed, dated, impossible to unwrite. In a small media lounge, a handful of reporters waited with sharpened faces. Damien stood to the side, quiet and watchful, his phone lighting up with confirmations, counsel, escrow agent receipt, PR alignment, board vote progress. Consequences moved faster than emotions ever could. Across the city, Vailteca's emergency board session wasn't ceremonial. It was triage. Ethan sat alone in a sleek conference room, jacket folded over a chair like surrender. The board chair's voice came through the speaker again, colder now, stripped of negotiation. Pending an emergency vote and formal process, the chair said, your authority remains suspended. You will not represent the company publicly. You will not bind the company. You will comply with counsel. Ethan tried to argue. Tried to frame it as a misunderstanding. Tried to sound like the victim of a setup. But the board didn't need his explanation. They had the video. They had the investor withdrawal. They had sponsors already stepping back. When the call ended, Ethan stared at his phone's dark screen and saw his own reflection, eyes wide, jaw tight, a man who had believed a title made him untouchable. That night proved something else. Back at the gala, Charlotte Kingsley discovered the room had turned on her too. She hadn't screamed. She hadn't grabbed anyone. She'd only laughed, filmed, posted, fed the machine because she thought she controlled it. Now the machine had her name. Screenshots spread. Tags multiplied. A charity board she sat on released a short statement. An event planner quietly removed her from a future guest list she would never see and never outrun. Her red dress looked less like power and more like evidence. In the media lounge, Layla gave one statement, short, clean, unshakable. Meridian's decision is final, she said. We are reallocating capital toward programs that protect workers and enforce dignity. This is policy. No victory lap. No dramatic flourish. Just enforcement. Omar stood beside her for a single photo, then offered a sentence that traveled farther than any apology ever could. Respect is not a favor, he said. It is a requirement. In the weeks that followed, the Worker Dignity Program launched with quiet speed, a hotline staffed by real attorneys, trainings led by people who'd actually worked the floor, scholarships that didn't demand proof of worthiness to be treated like a person. Damien built the compliance framework the way he did everything, without noise, without mercy for loopholes. And Layla kept showing up in rooms like that ballroom, not to be seen, but to see, because the point was never that she spoke Arabic like a native. The point was that she didn't need any language, any title, any uniform, any proof to deserve basic respect. That should have been enough. It wasn't. So she made the lesson expensive.